Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Justin Jefferson trade demand coming. Vikings chaos. McJones, Trevor Lawrence, or stick with J.J. McCarthy? What is going on, Vikings Nation? Welcome back to the most unfiltered, no-holds-barred Vikings coverage on the entire internet. If you're looking for someone to sugarcoat this absolute dumpster fire of a season, you've come to the wrong place. But if you want the raw, honest truth about where this franchise is headed, mixed with some laughs, some pain, and a whole lot of Vikings misery, then buckle up because today's mailbag episode is going to hit different. Before we dive into the chaos, make sure you absolutely demolish that subscribe button, smash that like until your thumb hurts, and drop a comment telling me which direction you think this franchise should go, because honestly, I have no idea anymore, and maybe you guys can help me figure it out. Let's get into it. It's mailbag time, people. This is my favorite show I do every single week because it's just me and you, the real Vikings fans who have stuck with this team through thick and thin, mostly thin this year, and we're going to chop it up about what the hell went wrong in Minnesota this season. We got questions coming in hot, and the first one is an absolute banger from Vikings legend Jared Allen himself, asking who is a dark horse quarterback target for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, before we get into my answer, can we just appreciate that Jared Allen, one of the greatest defensive players in Vikings history, is out here asking about quarterback prospects? That's the level of concern we've reached with this franchise. So let's talk dark horse quarterback targets. The favorite right now, and I think everyone knows this, is Mac Jones. There are reports everywhere that the Vikings are going to be interested in him this upcoming offseason. The writing is on the wall. The tea leaves are being read. Mac Jones to Minnesota feels like it's happening whether we like it or not. But you asked me for a dark horse target, so I'm going to give you one that's going to make some of you lose your minds. Trevor Lawrence. Now, before you start typing furiously in the comments about his contract and how impossible this would be, just hear me out for a second. I'm not saying I would bring in Trevor Lawrence. I'm not saying the Vikings should mortgage their future to make this happen. But if you want to talk about the archetype of quarterback that fits Kevin O'Connell's system perfectly, it's Trevor Lawrence all day long. Big body, 6'5", commanding presence in the pocket, can attack the middle of the field with velocity and accuracy. That's the prototype for what Kevin O'Connell wants to do offensively. Now, is Trevor Lawrence actually that good of a quarterback? Honestly, I don't really think so. He's been inconsistent. He's had injury problems, and he's never quite lived up to that generational prospect hype from his Clemson days. But here's the thing. If Kevin O'Connell got Trevor Lawrence, I genuinely think we'd win 10 or 11 games and then fizzle out in the playoffs. Sound familiar? That's exactly how I feel about Mac Jones, too. These are the kinds of quarterbacks that get you to mediocrity, that keep you trapped in that purgatory of being good enough to miss out on elite draft picks, but not good enough to actually compete for championships. It's the Vikings way, honestly. It's what this franchise has been doing for decades. We get just close enough to taste success, and then it all falls apart in spectacular fashion. The Trevor Lawrence idea is fascinating, though, because you have to somehow work out that contract situation. The Jaguars just gave him a massive extension. The financials would be an absolute nightmare. But in a hypothetical world where the Jaguars decide to blow it up and start over, where they're willing to eat a bunch of dead money to move on from their former number one pick, could you see the Vikings swooping in and saying, hey, we'll take a chance on the guy who was supposed to be the next Peyton Manning? I could see Kevin Adolfo and the Wilf family convincing themselves that they're getting a steal, that they're the ones who can unlock Trevor Lawrence's potential, that this is the move that finally gets them over the hump. And then we'd watch it play out exactly like every other Vikings quarterback experiment. Promising start, fleeting hope, devastating disappointment. Next question comes from Joe asking if the Vikings should get Fernando Mendoza. Now, I actually really like Fernando Mendoza as a prospect. Even when he was at Cal, people were talking about him potentially being a first-round pick last year. We don't know how that would have played out if he had declared, but he's getting number one overall pick buzz this year because of the absolutely insane season he's having at Indiana. The dude is fantastic. He reminds me a lot of Jared Goff, actually. if everything around him is protected well, if everything is on time and on script, if the system is functioning the way it's supposed to, he can be an absolute hell of a quarterback. He's got the arm talent, the decision making, and the poise you want. But here's the problem. Should the Vikings go get him? Probably not. And here's why. The Vikings are going to be drafting somewhere in that 7 to 12 range. Let's say they end up at pick 9, just for argument's sake. The move up from 9 to 1, which is where you'd need to be to guarantee getting Mendoza, is going to cost you multiple first-round picks and maybe even a player. Could you imagine the package? Maybe it's 2 first-rounders and Jordan Addison to get up to number 1. Maybe the Tennessee Titans, who will probably be picking first, would rather have a proven receiver in Addison than a first-round pick. That's possible. But I just don't think it's likely, and I don't think it would be the right move for this organization. Trading multiple years of draft capital and a talented young receiver to move up for a quarterback who's really good but not necessarily a generational talent feels like the kind of move that sets your franchise back for half a decade if it doesn't work out. And with the Vikings' track record of quarterback evaluation, do we really trust them to make that call correctly? I'm not sure I do. Mendoza is going to be a really good NFL quarterback for someone. I'm just not convinced the Vikings are the right team to trade up and get him, especially when you consider how many holes this roster has at other positions. Now we've got Blake Weary coming in with an observation that made me laugh out loud. He says he loves how the day after he told me we should draft Jeremiah Love, every Vikings YouTube channel started posting about how the Vikings should go draft Jeremiah Love. Blake, you're ahead of the curve, my friend. The Notre Dame running back is an absolute stud, and I'm completely with you on the Vikings drafting him. If you told me that Patrick Camus is going to change his offense, that we're going to be downhill, that we're going to be run first, then give me Jeremiah Love all day long, you could still trust Brian Flores to figure out that defense, even though safety and corner are huge positions of need. The thing about Jeremiah Love that gets me excited is his running style. If Kevin O'Connell is going to commit to being a run-first team, if they're going to pound the rock and control the clock and play that old-school brand of football, Love is your guy. I'm not comparing him to Adrian Peterson, but the way he operates has some similarities. Remember back in the day when AP would just methodically work a defense over? 4 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards, 6 yards, just grinding them down, wearing them out. Then late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter, he'd break one off for 60 or 70 yards, and you'd look up at the stat sheet and realize he averaged 8 yards per carry. That's Jeremiah Love's game. He's going to slow burn you all game long, and then he'll hit you with that knockout punch when you're tired and your defense is gassed. Dane Bugler, who's a really respected NFL draft analyst, actually had the Vikings taking Love in his recent mock draft. So there could be some legitimate interest there from the Vikings front office. But here's the catch, and this is where it all falls apart. It all comes down to Kevin O'Connell. If KOC is going to run the same offense he's running right now, if he's not going to commit to being a run-first team, then what's the point of drafting Jeremiah Love? It's not like the Vikings don't have good running backs right now. Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones have both had solid years when they actually get the chance to run the football. But they don't get that chance very often because Kevin O'Connell wants to throw it 40 times a game. That's the fundamental disconnect with this offense. We have the personnel to be a physical, run-first team that controls the line of scrimmage and keeps our defense fresh. But we have a head coach who wants to be Sean McVay, who wants to sling it all over the field, who wants to be creative and innovative with his passing concepts. You can't have it both ways. Either commit to running the football and draft guys like Jeremiah Love, or commit to being a passing offense and draft weapons who can create separation and make plays in space. This wishy-washy middle ground is exactly why we're sitting here at 5-8 or 6-8 or whatever our record is at this point. The season is basically over, and we're left asking more questions than we have answers for. Easton comes in with a spicy take that I actually love. He says, make Brian Flores head coach, fire Kevin O'Connell, bring in Brian Dable as offensive coordinator, and get a veteran quarterback for J.J. McCarthy to learn from. You know what? I like that plan. I like it a lot, actually. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen. I don't think there's a chance in the world that Kevin O'Connell gets fired. Ben Gosling, who covers the Vikings and is pretty plugged in, said he would be shocked if either of the two main members of the Vikings organization, meaning Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah or Kevin O'Connell, are fired this cycle. So we're stuck with what we have, for better or worse. But here's another reason why I would be more open to the Vikings firing Kevin O'Connell beyond just his performance this season. I don't want Brian Flores to go anywhere. Think about this for a second. There are going to be probably 5 head coaching openings this offseason. And there are already 2 right now, and there are going to be several more once Black Monday rolls around. Brian Flores is going to be at the top of a lot of these lists. Every team looking for a head coach is going to interview him. He's been absolutely phenomenal this season. His defensive scheme is unique, innovative, and incredibly effective. He's getting maximum production out of players who weren't supposed to be stars. He's created a culture on that side of the ball that's special. The Vikings cannot afford to lose Brian Flores. If firing Kevin O'Connell and promoting Flores to head coach is what it takes to keep him in Minnesota, then that's what they should do. But the Wilf family isn't going to pay Kevin O'Connell to go coach somewhere else. It's just not in their DNA. They're not going to eat that contract. They're also not going to pay him to just sit at home and not be affiliated with the organization. So nothing's going to change. It's the same old Minnesota Vikings. We're going to run it back with Kevin O'Connell, hope that somehow things magically get better next year, and probably watch Brian Flores leave to become a head coach somewhere else. It's the most Vikings thing that could possibly happen. I want to pause here and ask you guys a question, because this is something I'm genuinely curious about. Who do you think will be quarterback 1 for the Vikings next season? I've been saying it's going to be Mac Jones. I'm very much against that move, but there's a lot of writing on the wall. The reports are out there. The connections make sense. Mac Jones was in a Kyle Shanahan offense in New England with some Shanahan concepts. Kevin O'Connell's offense has Shanahan DNA all over it. They're going to convince themselves that Mac Jones can be a game manager who doesn't lose you games, who can execute the system, who can get the ball to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and let them make plays. And we're going to go 10-7, sneak into the playoffs as a wild card, and get boat raced in the first round by an actual contender. That's my prediction. Mac Jones as the starter with J.J. McCarthy as the backup, learning and developing behind a veteran. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys think it's going to be J.J. McCarthy as the starter from day one next year. Maybe you think they're going to go get Trevor Lawrence or Kyler Murray or some other, established veteran. Get creative for me and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Who's going to be under center for the Vikings in week 1 next season? Because honestly, that's the biggest question facing this franchise right now, and how they answer it is going to determine the trajectory of the next 5 years. Before we continue with more mailbag questions, I need to address something that absolutely destroyed me during this show. We got a question from someone with the username 9, and it featured a photoshopped image of J.J. McCarthy in a Bulls jersey. Now, if you don't know, I'm a Chicago Bulls fan, so seeing J.J. McCarthy, who wears number 9 and has become an absolute meme legend this season, photoshopped into my favorite basketball team's jersey, is just a double dose of pain stabbed directly into my heart. This is hilarious and devastating at the same time. Can we just talk about how the Vikings, in the midst of one of the most disappointing seasons in recent memory, have created not 1 but 2 legendary memes? First, we gave the world the term soft benching, which is now permanently part of NFL vernacular. Then we gave them J.J. McCarthy's meme mug in the locker room. That image of him mean mugging on the sideline has taken over the internet. I promise you, whoever loses the Super Bowl this year is going to get that photoshopped image with J.J. McCarthy staring them down. It's become the new crying Jordan meme for NFL losses. At least we're contributing something to the culture, even if it's not wins. The question that came with that image asked if the Vikings should trade a second-round pick for Mac Jones. After that photo threw me completely off my game, I could barely talk straight. But to answer the question, no, I don't think they should. You're going to win 10 games, you're going to lose in the playoffs right away, and you're going to waste another year of Justin Jefferson's prime. That's not a recipe for success. That's a recipe for perpetual mediocrity. Joe comes back with another question asking if I think 9 will ever be our franchise quarterback. All right, can I just say something? I have legitimate PTSD when I hear the number 9 now. It's honestly worse than all those juvenile jokes kids make about the numbers 6 and 9. Anytime I hear 9, I feel like I'm a war veteran hearing gunshots in the background. And I don't mean to disrespect any actual veterans out there, because what you've been through is infinitely more serious than me getting triggered by a number associated with an underperforming rookie quarterback. But man, it's rough out here. To answer Joe's question seriously, though, who knows if J.J. McCarthy will ever be our franchise quarterback? It doesn't look like it right now, but he's also only played 6 games. If you want to take an optimistic view, and trust me, that's hard to do after this season, the team around him hasn't been very good. Kevin O'Connell hasn't done him any favors whatsoever. The offensive line has been inconsistent. The play calling has been questionable. The weapons haven't always been available or utilized correctly. Maybe in a better situation with better coaching and better support, J.J. McCarthy could develop into something special. I'm not going to completely sell my stock on McCarthy just yet. He's a rookie. Rookies struggle. That's normal. What concerns me is that we haven't seen consistent improvement or flashes of brilliance that make you say, oh, yeah, that guy is going to be special. And we've seen moments, sure. But moments don't build franchises. Consistency does. Reliability does. The ability to make plays when everything around you is falling apart does. We haven't seen enough of that from J.J. McCarthy to make a definitive judgment, but we also haven't seen enough to feel confident that he's the answer long term. Reed Southern asks if we could go back in time to the trade deadline. Should we have traded for someone? This is an interesting question because I think it reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of where this team was at. The Vikings shouldn't have been buyers at the trade deadline. They should have been sellers. You should have tried to trade Harrison Smith. You should have tried to trade Jonathan Greenard. TJ Hawkinson should have been on the block. Even a guy like Josh Metellus, who signed a pretty big extension, you should have at least explored what you could get for him. Clear some cap space, acquire some future draft capital, and admit that this season is a lost cause. The idea of trading for somebody like maybe a veteran quarterback such as Jameis Winston wouldn't have been a terrible call. But the Vikings are in no position to trade future draft capital for anybody with how bad this season has gone. You don't mortgage your future when your present is already foreclosed. That's how bad franchises stay bad for decades. The smart move would have been to accumulate assets, get younger, get more draft picks, and set yourself up to make a real run in a year or two when you've properly rebuilt. Someone suggests we need Kyler Murray, and I'm going to shut that down immediately. That would be terrible. We need someone with pocket presence, and Kyler Murray doesn't go under center. You're not going to win games with a quarterback who doesn't go under center. We've seen Caleb Williams this year. He's under center more than almost any other quarterback in the NFL besides Jared Goff, funny enough. But Kyler doesn't go under center, and I don't think he would be a good fit with this offense, considering Kevin O'Connell wants to attack the middle of the field repeatedly. Those 15-yard intermediate routes over the middle are the foundation of KOC's offense, and that's not really Kyler's strength. If the Vikings had an offense like the Seahawks had back in the day with Russell Wilson, where you're getting under center, handing off to Marshawn Lynch, and dropping moon balls over the top to let your playmakers make plays, then maybe Kyler Murray would make sense. You could let him play some backyard football, use his mobility, and take advantage of his deep ball accuracy. But that's not what Kevin O'Connell wants to do, so there's no interest there for me with Kyler Murray. Joe asks if I would like the Vikings to draft Mansour Delane. This is the cornerback from LSU who's about 6'1". He started his collegiate career at Virginia Tech, but has really broken out at LSU. This guy's a dog. He's got swagger, which I always love at the cornerback position. You need that confidence, that belief that you can lock down any receiver in the league. I haven't looked into him too deeply just yet, but from the draft analysts I trust, they're big fans of Mansour Delane. Maybe this is a good trade-back option for the Vikings. If they get the 8th overall pick, they could trade back to 15 or 16 for a team trying to trade up for a quarterback, like the Steelers, for example. That's a hypothetical we should discuss one day on the channel. Then I would 100% have Mansour Delane on my draft board at that spot. Corner is a massive need for this defense, and getting a young, talented, physical cornerback with attitude would be a great building block for the future. Now we get to the question that might be the most important one of this entire mailbag. Love Golf asks, When does a trade demand happen? Specifically talking about Justin Jefferson. Listen, it could happen this offseason. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I would not be shocked if Jefferson goes to the front office and says, hey guys, I wrote it out with you. I really tried to trust this process here, and it just hasn't gone well. I gave you my prime years. I signed the extension. I've been nothing but professional, but I want to win, and this isn't winning. I could absolutely see Jefferson demanding a trade, and you know what? I wouldn't blame him one bit. This man is the best receiver in the NFL, or at least in the conversation for it every single year. He's given everything to this organization. He's been a model citizen, a leader, a playmaker, and the Vikings have completely wasted his talent. They've surrounded him with questionable quarterback play, inconsistent coaching, and a team that can't get out of its own way. At some point, elite players get tired of losing. At some point, they look around the league and see guys like Tyreek Hill winning big games in Kansas City, guys like Stephon Diggs getting chances to compete for championships, and they say, why not me? Here's the thing, though. I don't think we'll ever get a report from Adam Schefter saying, breaking news, Justin Jefferson has requested a trade from the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think that report would ever come out publicly. Jefferson and his camp are very conscious of his image, his brand, and how he's perceived. They'll handle this behind closed doors. They'll have quiet conversations with ownership and management, and then one day we'll just get that bombshell notification out of nowhere. Justin Jefferson has been traded to the Chiefs or the Bills or the Ravens or one of these elite AFC teams. It'll come out of nowhere for us, but it will have been brewing behind the scenes for months. That's how I think Jefferson operates, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. He's smart about protecting his reputation and his marketability. But make no mistake, if the Vikings don't turn this thing around quickly, if they don't show him that they're committed to building a winner around him, he's going to explore his options. And honestly, who could blame him? We got Shimshack Collectibles coming in with a $20 super chat, which I always appreciate. Shimshack is a loyal supporter of this channel and always brings thoughtful questions. He says, honestly, the Vikings lost this season. Just let 9 go out there and finish up the season and play. J.J. McCarthy did say in his press conference today that Kevin O'Connell and Macau told him to stop caring about his mechanics and just go out there and play football. That could pay some good dividends over these last couple of weeks. When you're overthinking everything, when you're too concerned with being perfect, sometimes you just need to cut loose and play on instinct. If you made it to the end of this show, you're a real one. Drop a Skol in the comments so I know you stuck with me through this entire emotional roller coaster. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we're pushing toward a major milestone on this channel, and I cannot do it without your support. Smash that like button, turn on those notifications, and I will see you for the game against the Commanders this Sunday, where we'll be live reacting to whatever chaos unfolds. Until then, keep your heads up, Vikings fans. We've survived worse than this. Probably. Maybe. I don't know anymore. Skol Vikings.